All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here at the summit of Mount Washington for another broadcast of Home of the World's Worst Weather Live. My name is Ian Bailey. I am a weather observer and educational specialist here on the summit of Mount Washington, and I'm part of a crew of 6 observers who are split into 2 separate crews that work a week on and week off schedule here on the summit of Mount Washington, taking observations, putting out forecast products, and doing research here from the top of New England. As part of the Observatory, again, we are a nonprofit standalone research organization that has been on the summit since 1932 doing all of this great work, and we're supported by membership and fundraising efforts. So if you are members of the Observatory, really thank you so much because without your help, we wouldn't be up here doing all the awesome work it is that we do up here. So this is our Tuesday edition of Home of the World's Worst Weather Live, and so we're going to be taking a look at some current summit conditions. We're going to take a look at the forecast for the next couple of days. But before we dive into that, yesterday, if you tuned in for our maiden voyage broadcast, we talked a little bit about the Observatory, who we are and what we do, and some of the work that we do here on the summit. And I wanted to show you guys a video of the de-icing process. So every few hours in some really intense icing events, we have to go to the top of the tower with heavy crowbars and mallets and other tools. We actually have to knock the ice off our instrumentation so that's reading properly. And just so you can see how crazy that process is, I got the video to work today, so I wanted to show that to you guys so you can see exactly what that looks like. So allow me to go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can get a really good look at this video. And for the context here, so this is an observer and a couple of night observer and day observer team going to the top of the tower and de-icing in 120 mile/hour wind. So let's go ahead and watch this video just so you can see. So I mentioned yesterday we don't use any straps or harnesses to hold us down to the tower, so you have to use your sheer body strength to stand in these incredible wind speeds. And it's nice to have a couple observers down below just to make sure in case you start to slide, they can be there to catch you and help you if you need it. So again, sheer body strength, you lock yourself in there to the top of the tower. He's got his crowbar in hand, and he's going to hit the post that the instrument is attached to shake the ice loose, let the wind blow it off. So he gets a couple of good hits in here. There goes some of the ice, and now the pitot tube is rotating much more freely into the wind. We know that we're getting accurate data there. So you can see that process is pretty crazy from time to time. And just another way you can see how crazy this is, what I wanted to show you is just how big and thick and heavy some of that ice can get. Because we did have a pretty interesting low pressure system that moved through this weekend and saw an impressive amount of ice. And so if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I have something for show and tell today. Ugh. Here we go. Okay. So this is a piece of ice that grew off the side of our A-frame. It's kind of like a red metal tent structure that's just outside our observation deck door that collects and protects ice from falling down and smashing on top of us while we go outside to do our work. So this right here is one of those chunks of ice, really, really heavy. So it's probably upwards of about 50 pounds here, all one giant chunk of ice. There you go, so you can see. And this is about half of its normal size. So this is about 3, maybe 3.5 feet long, which was growing outside on the observation deck. And I'll come in close so you can see it's kind of got this interesting square dent-like structure. There we go, inside. So that's where you can see it was growing on the A-frame itself. And it's actually a combination of glaze ice, so I don't know how well you guys can see, but those clear sections of the ice there are actually glaze. And then the more opaque sections, the hard parts that you can't really see through, that's the rime ice. And so this is remnant. This is left over from actually a few days ago. And again, it's incredibly heavy, probably about 50 pounds or so, at least in this size. Now imagine it actually being double. So it's about twice as big when you get some of the larger pieces from out on the deck. But those are way too big and heavy for me to bring inside. So I figured I'd just get one of the smaller pieces and bring that inside so you guys could see. So yeah, so these icy conditions that we experience can be pretty intense. But again, I just wanted to show you guys that because I couldn't get a chance really to show it to you yesterday. So thank you for bearing with me on that. But I just wanted to show you just how crazy not only the winds can get here on the summit, but also the icing conditions too. All right, so these Tuesday broadcasts, we're supposed to talk about the current summit conditions and take a look at the forecast, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we'll go ahead and start off with some of our current summit conditions here. Sorry, I'm a little winded because boy, was that ice heavy. So let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at what's going on outside. So this is on mountwashington.org on our website on the current summit conditions page. You can go there anytime, whenever you like, to get a look kind of at a live feed of what's happening up here. And we'll start off with wind. So our winds, just like they were yesterday, just shy of 22 miles per hour. So again, calm, because our average wind speed throughout the year is about 35 miles per hour. So we're set in for another calm day here as far as wind is concerned. Temperatures have been kind of hanging out in the mid-teens all day, so we're hanging out in the 15, 16, sometimes 17 degrees for what we've been seeing so far this morning. We did get a little bit of precipitation last night, a little bit of snow, a little bit of freezing rain. Not a whole lot though, so we only got about 0.2 inches, which melted into 0.02 inches of liquid. And so we didn't really see too much more precipitation as that low moved off. And we're pretty much well set until tomorrow, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. We have decent visibility right now. Again, that's the red line here that you can see going across the center of the chart. So we can see about 70 miles away from the summit at this point. And so we are very much in the clear, and skies are decreasing as far as cloud cover above. We do have a nudge of high pressure, some drier air that is moving in from the north. That is allowing us to see a little bit further and further as the day progresses. And then finally, up here in the top left, this is our vertical temperature profile. So if you didn't tune in with us yesterday, Mount Washington actually has a set of weather stations from the summit all the way back down to the base at different levels as you go down the mountain. And these stations that are part of what we call our mesonet are measuring things like temperature and wind as you go down from the summit. So again, up here, we're sitting at about 16 degrees. And then as you go down, temperatures will actually warm as you get closer to the surface. And then right down there near the base, you're just above freezing in the, well, you're kind of in the mid 30s, just above baseline there. And then down at the base itself, you're really just above freezing. So this is a pretty standard profile. Normally temperatures are decreasing with height of the atmosphere, so this is fairly normal to see. So we're not terribly surprised looking at that. So we're having a pretty normal, I wouldn't say average because it is pretty calm by comparison, but we're having a pretty normal day so far here on the summit. So this is numerically what's going on. Again, you could always go to mountwashington.org on the current summit conditions page to see what's going on. Let's show you what it actually looks like outside. I'll go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit so you can get a better look at the picture. So this is a look from our deck cam. So this is a camera that sits in our observation tower and looks down across the observation deck. So this is where we go outside every single hour, 24/7, 365 to record our observations. And so you can see the railing of the observation deck here, and you can even see some of the ice. Again, here's some rime ice that built up from that low the other day. Some of it has started to melt and schleff off the side onto the deck there. Still a bit of snow, but then we have decent visibility out there in the back. So you can see a little bit of Wildcat Mountain over here. So this is a place where people like to go skiing and snowboarding a lot. Some of the other northern presidential sections, the Ball Crag, and some of the lower spots just underneath summit level. And again, we can see probably about 70 miles away from the summit at this point. So we're in for a pretty calm, clear, stable day. But we'll be looking forward to the next 24 to 48 hours because things are going to get a little bit interesting as far as the forecast goes. So let's go ahead and transition over and talk about the forecast as far as the next 48 hours are concerned. Now, meteorologists, generally speaking, when they work on a forecast, they kind of approach it like going down a funnel, looking at the absolute biggest picture that we possibly can, and then working our way all the way back down to our local area. So the biggest picture that you could ever really look at is on a global scale. So we're looking at weather patterns in different hemispheres, like the northern and southern hemisphere. That's the absolute biggest picture that you can look. But for our purposes, when we do these Tuesday and Thursday broadcasts, we'll be going down to what we call the Synoptic Scale. It's kind of like the next step down, what you would consider the big picture, looking at things on a national level. And when we do that, we're trying to look to see different pressure systems and different things that are going on across the country and points of interest that help us identify what's going to be going on with weather in different parts of the nation. So I wanted to point out a couple of things, and we're going to start off pretty simple here. And identify pressure systems, because pressure systems are going to tell us a whole lot about the different types of weather we can expect in different parts of the country. So we'll start off with low pressures, and generally speaking, low pressures are responsible for the bad weather. That's when we see cloudy skies, rain, snow, sometimes thunderstorms or severe weather. Not every single low is going to be severe and scary, but low pressures are essentially disturbances in the atmosphere where we expect to see not so great weather. So I'm going to identify the different low pressure regions here with the red circles and the L's. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have high pressure, which I'll identify with these blue H's and circles here. So high pressure is the opposite in that it's responsible for clear and stable weather, kind of like what we're seeing right now. So sunny skies, puffy white clouds, low winds, really calm conditions outside are usually associated with high pressure. So it's nice to see that we have a healthy mix different pressure systems across the country here. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the different things that are going on. So anywhere that we see these blue H circles, we're going to expect some pretty stable weather. And when you're over here in the Rockies, in the Rocky Mountain part of the country, if you're tuning in from that part of the world, things always get a little bit interesting because as pressure systems move over the top of the Rockies, they actually get squeezed and compressed and they kind of weaken and destabilize a little bit. The best metaphor that we like to use for that is like, think of an ice skater. And when an ice skater is all spread out and spinning around, they spin kind of low and slow and kind of weakly. But then when they pull their arms in and tighten up, they actually spin faster and faster. And that exact same phenomenon happens with pressure systems when they move over mountains. So when they come down the other side of Rockies, they'll actually stretch out and start to spin faster and intensify and actually strengthen on whatever side of the scale they happen to be on. Now, when we see these high pressures come across and stretch out and go back to doing their thing, that's when we expect really dry and stable conditions. Now, when a low pressure like this one here steps over, like it's going to go over into the Dakotas or maybe over into Minnesota, when that low pressure stretches back out, that's when we start to see moisture lifted from the surface. We start to see rain showers, snow showers, maybe even thunderstorms, depending on how strong that system gets. So we're watching here, at least in the north central plains here, when that low comes down off the Rockies, we'll be looking to see if it forms any precipitation. Now over here on the eastern half of the country, we have a high pressure system over the Great Lakes that's pushing drier air into the region. And it is important to note that how air flows around these different pressure systems, around high pressure systems, things rotate clockwise, kind of like that. Now for low pressure systems, it's the opposite. It rotates counterclockwise. So that's always important to know when you see precipitation around these systems, how exactly are they moving around the different pressure regions? That's going to help you understand, what type of weather you can expect as these different pressure systems move along. So we've got high pressure rotating down, drier air in from the north, kind of just above where we're at. But then we have these two low pressure systems. This one here is the one that hit us over the weekend. This is the one that gave you the giant chunk of ice. And it's still kind of hanging out here over the Atlantic. And then we have a new one down here that's forming just off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, down in the southeast part of the country. So if you're tuning in from Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi, if you check out your forecast, or if you're listening to what I'm talking about here, you can see we'll probably have some rain showers in your neck of the woods, maybe even some thunderstorms, depending on what's going on as the day progresses. But you do have this low pressure disturbance hanging out in your neck of the woods. And we're going to watch as that low actually starts to track towards our neck of the woods. So let's go ahead and clear the board here so you can see what's going on. And we're going to move forward in time a few hours so you can watch how these different pressure systems progress. So we'll go ahead and step into the afternoon hours today. So this is probably around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see here's the low pressure that's hanging out over the southeast part of the country. It actually has a bit of moisture. It's picked up moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. It's picking up moisture from the Atlantic. It's building its moisture plume, its area of precipitation where rain is likely to occur, and has started moving up the east coast. We're going to be watching that in our neck of the woods because, as you'll see in a moment, this low will track up the east coast and actually absorb the energy from the low that moved through this weekend and become much stronger. Also, the low pressure up here will be kind of moving into the Dakotas and producing some snow. As you can see, there's some snow and rain mix right along the Canadian border there as we're moving forward in time. So we'll move into the evening hours tonight. So this is midnight tonight. Here's our big low that's bombing off the east coast, lots of rain showers and maybe some thunderstorms in the southeast part of the country. In the Dakotas, you're seeing some rain showers as well, coming off of this low from the Rockies there, moving towards Minneapolis. And as we move into tomorrow morning, there we go. Give it a second to load there. All right, so here's the low I was talking about. Again, especially North Dakota, you're getting hit with some snow and some rain showers. Down here in the southeast part of the country, this low is intensifying. It's getting much stronger because it has access to a lot of moisture from the Atlantic, and that moisture is kind of like the fuel source for these low pressure systems. So it's getting bigger and stronger. So right here in North Carolina and Virginia, you'll probably be seeing some rain, and if it gets cold enough, maybe even a wintry mix, depending on what's going on. But this system is starting to ingest the energy from the low that came through this weekend. We can even see some snow showers popping up here in Maine. And so this system is intensifying as we go forward in time. As far as our neck of the woods goes, we're actually not seeing much of it just yet. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we'll get into the late afternoon hours tomorrow, heading into tomorrow evening, as soon as it decides to load. There we go. All right, so check out this low here in the southeast now. This has gotten much bigger. It's actually down into hurricane force strength. What we would consider, at least for this time of year, practically a nor'easter. The only difference is it's moving off into the Atlantic here, so it's not having as much of an effect along the coast. And for those of you who aren't familiar with these type of storms, nor'easters are named nor'easters because, again, as air rotates counterclockwise around the low pressure, up here in New England proper, we actually see winds from the northeast pretty frequently. And so that's why they're called nor'easters, because of the wind direction around these low pressure systems as they move. But this system has pretty much absorbed the low from the weekend. It is pretty strong. In our neck of the woods, as you'll see in a moment, we'll probably be seeing some snow showers, and the summits will probably go back into the fog at this point. And again, this is 8 p.m. on Wednesday, so 8 p.m. tomorrow. So that's kind of what's going on with the big picture. And also here in the North Dakotas too, check out, we've got snow just above the border there. You've probably got some rain that's moved here into Minnesota, moving into Wisconsin as well. So that's what's going on with our big picture. Let's bring it down one more level to what we call the Meso Scale. So that's the next step down from the Synoptic Scale, where we're talking about what's going on in a regional part. So this is what we're talking about happening in the northeast part of the country where we're located. We're here in northern New Hampshire. So we're taking a look at temperatures real quick, and our temperatures really aren't going to change a whole lot while we're waiting for this low to move up the coast and start to build into its stronger system. So as we're looking at temperature charts here, we got these blues here, which are representing our temperatures kind of in the mid to low teens, with which we've been seeing the last couple of days. These little flags are showing you wind direction and speed, and there's not a whole lot of flag to them. I don't know how well you guys can see, so I'll go ahead and zoom in here so you can get a better look. There we go. So these little flags here, the more barbs that they have on them, the stronger the wind is. And in this case, we don't have very many barbs on our flags here, so wind is pretty calm, temperature is pretty steady through the afternoon hours, and then we're getting to the overnight. Temperatures will drop a little bit. We've got these deeper blues moving in, lots of air coming in from the northeast. And then as we progress through the day tomorrow, again, not a whole lot of change, but if you're looking down here on this section of the map, here comes that low from the southeast part of the country moving its way up, absorbing the energy from the previous low and getting stronger. So as we move through the afternoon hours, there it is. Look at all of this wind. If you look down here at this very small part, let me zoom in a little bit further, you can really see the barbs on these little flags that turn into triangles. Those triangles represent 50 knots, so maybe like 55, almost 60 mile per hour wind speeds down here, just off the coast of Virginia and North Carolina. And things are intensifying up here in Maine. Temperatures are warming a little bit as we have coastal air moving in. And then we can see things at Mount Washington are going to start to get interesting during the overnight hours on Wednesday, maybe even some precipitation as well, as we'll look in a moment. But we'll go ahead and show you a profile sounding so you can see what's going on with temperature. And this is a very complicated map. We'll talk about it during one of our other deep dives for sure. But the main point to note here is that this red line here is showing temperature as you go up through the atmosphere. And this green line here is showing you dew point as you go up through the atmosphere. When these lines are super close together, like they are here in the lower section of this graph, that generally means there's a ton of moisture in the air, and you might even be in the clouds, especially down here where we're at this 800 level. That's where the summit of Mount Washington is. You can see that these lines are touching. That generally means that we're going to be inside the fog. So we'll be in the fog, and we'll be taking a look to see whether or not we'll have snow showers here. So this is a precipitation map, and we're going to look for possible rain, possible snow in our neck of the woods as we step forward. So this is right now, this morning, as we step through the afternoon hours. Into the evening, here comes the moisture from the low again in Virginia and North Carolina. Lots of rain showers, maybe even some thunderstorms, even some snow showers starting to pop up here in Maine as we move forward into the morning hours tomorrow. So this is 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Here's the low. Look at all that moisture it's picking up off the Atlantic. The remnant energy from the previous low is now starting to be absorbed into that system, so a lot of like mixed precipitation at the mid-levels. And as we step towards the evening hours tonight, or it's not tonight, sorry, for Wednesday. So this is 8 p.m. on Wednesday, so now we can see moisture is starting to move its way back into New England, coming in from the northeast. And during the overnight hours into Thursday, we might even see some rain across Maine and southeastern New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And these little blue specks up here, that's a very special type of precipitation that we see up here called upslope snow. That's actually snow that's forming below summit level and working its way up to the top and snowing. So we'll be watching for what we call upslope snow, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that precipitation type in another one of our deep dives. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking for. For the next 48 hours or so, again, we're looking to see pretty stable conditions throughout rest of today into tomorrow for the summit of Mount Washington. And then by tomorrow evening, overnight into Thursday, we'll be watching for snow and rain and other types of precipitation along that line. Pretty typical Mount Washington weather when we get back to that point. If you are interested in a more specific look at our forecast, our Night Observer Jay put up one of our forecasts at around 4 o'clock this morning. You can go to mountwashington.org to our higher summits forecast, and you can get lots of good information about what's going on with the low, the one that's coming up the coast, and the precipitation we're going to see. And we even break it down for you into a 48-hour period So you can see, whether we're going to be in the clouds with precipitation, temperature, wind speed, wind chill, all of that good stuff. So make sure you check out the Higher Summits forecast for more information. And also, you guys can go to mountwashington.org/classroom to Home of the World's Worst Weather Live, so you can get lots of really good information about our programs and what's going to be happening over the next few days, as well as the video. So if you weren't able to tune in for yesterday's video, you can go find it here, and also a look at our schedule for the next couple of Mondays as far as the different different topics we're going to talk about during our deep dive sessions. And look, there's the video from yesterday, so feel free to check that out for sure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to questions at this point. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. You could even ask about weather in your particular neck of the woods, and I'm happy to try to answer and give you a little bit of a forecast for what's going on from wherever you are connecting in. And then while you guys are coming up with some questions, I actually have a couple of quick shout outs that I want to do. So we've got one shout out for Ben Squire in his classroom at Center School in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. You guys were doing some data collection from our norms, means, and extreme page. So hopefully you guys had a lot of fun collecting that data and will enjoy processing it for whatever you guys might be working on in your classroom. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, and thank you for checking out our data. And then we have another shout out from Amy Roth, also hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Maple Street School in Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the forecast. Hopefully you guys are thinking of some good questions and getting a better understanding of what weather is like here in New England and how we do forecasts and work here on the summit. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in on that front. So let's go ahead and see what you guys are posting about in the chat here and answer some questions real quick. So, thank you guys for bearing with me. Why don't we wear protection and harnesses? So this was back when I showed you guys the video from de-icing and 120 mile per hour winds. At one point we did try to wear straps and harnesses here in those crazy conditions, but we found two things. One, the straps like to freeze and snap in the wind and become very dangerous in those crazy conditions, so that's not good. And two, if you get blown off the side while wearing that harness, you kind of are just dangling helplessly there on the side of the tower, which is really not good if you're by yourself. So we decided to do away with the straps and harnesses, and it's part of your job description to be physically fit enough and strong enough to be able to hold yourself on top of the tower. So yes, there we go. Let's see, Yes, it is very much a morning workout for sure. And it's a great way to wake up too when you're like getting blasted by 120 mile per hour freezing wind. It's way better than coffee for sure. Let's see. How long did the longest snowfall go on for the history of your data collection? You know, that's actually a really good question that I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to do that research and get that information to you. I do know that in 1968 into 1969, that's when we saw the most snowfall in one season, 566 inches of snow. That's 47 feet of snow. That's a 4-story building's worth of snow here on the summit. I don't know how long the longest stretch of snow, I imagine it's several days, but I'll get that information to you as soon as I possibly can. That answers Nicole's question. So that's the most of snow that we've seen in one winter season, 566 inches. And I'm also not specific on the most snow that we saw in one 24-hour period, but it's up there, and I will get that information to you as soon as I can. Oh, okay, a good question from Hunter at Maple Street School. Thank you, Hunter. How long do we stay up here on the summit? So we actually live and work here for a week at a time. So we are here from Wednesday to Wednesday, living and working on the summit of Mount Washington. And we actually have 2 crews, so we swap back and forth. We do a week on, a week off, all throughout the year, which means you might be up here for some holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, or whatever holidays you might celebrate. And then we also have 2 shifts. So we have a day shift, which is the shift that I'm working right now from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then we have a night shift. So we have 2 night observers on my crew, David, who is training to become the new night observer, and Jay, who is our current night observer, who is training him. And they work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So yeah, we are constantly up here. There's somebody in the weather room 24/7, 365, so that we are continuing these observations just like we have for the last 88 years. So that's pretty cool. All right, last question, then I think we're just about out of time. And this is coming from Katie. Do you guys ever get stuck up there? And the short answer is yes. Yes, we do. One of our deep dives, we'll talk about transportation and what it's like living and working on the summit. But there are times where we are stuck up here past our normal week-long schedule. So it just is dependent on weather. If the snowcat drivers, so the giant machine, the giant tractor they use to go from the base to the top in the winter, if they can't see, or if they deem the conditions are too severe, if the weather's too bad to make it to the summit safely, you can be stuck here. I think the longest anyone's been stuck on the summit, though, was like maybe 2.5, 3 days. It's not uncommon to be stuck for an extra day or so. But that's just part of the job. We're the home of the world's worst weather, and so sometimes it's even so bad that we can't get off. And you just have to be patient. The weather will pass on at some point. High pressure and calm weather will move back in, and then you can get down safely. So yeah, it does happen. All right, real quick, how thick does the ice become? That depends on the different types of situations we're seeing up here. If we have an extreme icing event, sometimes rime ice can grow as fast as 6 to 12 inches per hour. And even in the last couple of months, I've seen glaze ice, that thick, heavy, solid ice, growing as fast as 5 inches per hour. And it's super heavy, which is what makes rain and icing events so terrible down at surface level, is you get that on tree branches and power lines, and that incredible heavy ice causes things to fall over and collapse. And we see the exact same thing up here for sure. All right, so any other questions that you guys have, I will be happy to go back and try to answer over the course of the day, but we are out of time. So feel free to ask questions in the chat, or you can direct message us here on Facebook, or you can message us on Twitter, Instagram, or you can send an email to education@mountwashington.org. We'll try to get to all your guys' questions, and we really appreciate you tuning in. So this will be my last broadcast with you guys. I'll be back in about a week. And Tom, the other education observer on the other crew, will be coming up tomorrow as part of our shift change, and he'll be taking over the Thursday broadcast. And so it'll be very similar to today. You guys will look at current summit conditions. You'll take a look at the forecast for the next 48 hours. And Tom will have lots of really great information to share. So make sure you check that out. Also, again, head to mountwashington.org/classroom. You can see what's going on as far as our schedule, what we'll plan to talk about. You can take a look at some of our deep dive sessions, which are on Monday. So this coming Monday, Tom will be talking about temperature and how that's part of our observations and the science behind temperature and how we record it. And again, you can always find lots of really great information here at the bottom. You can check out yesterday's episode. You can look at current summit conditions, higher summits forecast, the norms, means, and extremes. Lots of really great information from other sources as well, so make sure you guys check this out. So we very much appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part of these broadcasts. We're so excited to be able to share this information with you all. And hopefully you'll keep staying tuned and joining with us so we can talk to you about the crazy weather in the observatory and all this awesome stuff. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day.